the Grains Industry Strategy, and I'm just wondering if you can put your hands up if you've actually seen either our full strategy document or the snapshot that has been sent out. It's only about half of you. So the full strategy was put together last April and mailed out to some key stakeholders across PISC agencies and private and public sector entities. But the snapshot went out with ground cover in the June-July issue to 40,000 people who get the magazine. So I was hoping that most of you had seen that. If you haven't seen a copy and you would like to see them, the electronic copies are on the DAF, GRDC and Grain Producers Australia website. Or if you would like a hard copy, I haven't got many in stock in Perth, but if you let me know, I can get one sent to you so you can have a look at the full document, which is about 74 pages. So the grain strategy, national strategy, was developed using principles of the National Research Development Extension Framework, which focuses on enhancing the collaboration, coordination, efficiency and effectiveness of RD&E efforts nationally, and avoiding unnecessary duplication and fragmentation, and ensuring that we've got ongoing capability both for people and for infrastructure for our future. So there's 14 sectors, and I should say that it focuses really on looking at basic and strategic research on a national level, looking at research and development on a regional sort of level, and then looking at extension more at that local level. There's 14 sector strategies, so there's lots of other commodity groups that have been involved, and so grains is just one of those. For each of the strategies, they're led by a Research and Development Corporation, a PISC agency and an industry group. So for the grain strategy, we've got GRDC, DAFWA and Grain Producers Australia. So what I'd like to do in my talk is probably just have a look at a few of the key elements that are involved in planning for the implementation of the strategy, and also looking at some of the key areas that the implementation committee are focusing on to try to help with that implementation. So R&D priorities were captured under 4 pillars of RD&E activity consistent with the objectives and priorities of both industry and government. So the steering committee initially went out and had a look at what the federal, state government priorities were and industry, and came up with these areas here, which covered productivity, markets, biosecurity, climate variability, NRM, regional development and industry capacity, and had a look at some of those R&D priorities that were really important. Improved varieties, so the growers have access to new genetics and varieties with better on-farm performance and enhanced market competitiveness. Improved practices, so practices that increase farm productivity and profitability while maintaining the resource base and product integrity. Market competitiveness, so better knowledge, access and connections to improve the competitiveness and efficiency of the supply chain. And farm business and industry capability, so accelerating adoption of new technologies to increase farm business and sector viability. So out of these 4 pillars, a lot more specific areas of RD&E were developed and outlined in more detail in a big research and development matrix, which is too big to put up on the screen. But for instance, under genetic improvement in wheat, for instance, which would come out of the improved varieties, there's areas that look at abiotic stress or biotic stress and quality. Or in the area of crop protection, there's weed management, disease management and pest management. So from this huge matrix, all the agencies, universities and other entities nominated where they thought that their future area of interest would be, or their priorities for their institution. And then all these commitments were identified as being major, support or link, according to definitions that were used in the original National Primary Industries Framework. So the matrix is quite extensive and provides a really good overview of where there is investment in R&D. It also outlines where there are gaps in commitment and capability in the priority R&D areas. So the matrix is being updated. Obviously the strategy has been developed over a few years now, and so the matrix is a couple of years old, and so it's being updated on an annual basis, and hopefully we'll be able to have this kind of information online so that we can see who is interested in what areas of RD&E as it changes with time. So the matrix is designed to assist in the planning process for future provision of RD&E, which will be delivered through national programs, national centres of research capability and regional networks, and that's what I'd like to just focus on for a few moments, those national programs, national centres and the regional networks. So there were 26, the national programs are really the core, I guess, of the strategy, and there were 26 programs proposed through the strategy, and many of these were already existing. So I guess there's 6 areas that they fell into: crop genetic improvement, crop protection, agronomy, soil science and crop nutrition, climate adaptation and enabling functions. Now, enabling functions are really those nationally coordinated activities like biometrics, systems modelling and economics analysis that sort of fit into those last kind of group. So the National Centres of Research Capability provide clustering of related research and develop activities, expertise and infrastructure, and are expected to have international links and recognition to serve as major centres for high-level training in research disciplines for the grains industry. There's 5 centres that have been identified, and you can see that there's the Wait Institute, which is in South Australia, CSIRO Black Mountain in the ACT, AgriBio in Melbourne, Victoria, Coffee in Brisbane, and then one of the new ones that will be starting is the Australian Export Grains Innovation Centre. So AGIC, as we more colloquially know it, is the state government's commitment to, its flagship commitment to the grain strategy, and they've committed about $50 million to do this. AGIC's focused on increasing the competitiveness of the Australian grains industry through improved productivity and product value in export markets, and I won't talk any longer on that because obviously there's a longer talk on that towards the end of the program. So the strategy supports the formation of regional D&E networks focused on regional and local farming systems which integrate farming systems R&D with regional and local extension. So there's 3 characteristics of that. They're multi-location, so it would be expected that a regional D&E network is likely to encompass one or more major or smaller nodes that can efficiently service a particular regional agroecological environment. Multidisciplinary, so they're focused on more farming sort of systems kind of work for regional benefit. And they're multi-agency, and it involves grower groups, consultants and private sector D&E providers. And these networks across Australia have been defined in the northern, southern and western area. So in WA, unlike probably the southern and northern areas, we've not really defined them in different agroecological areas, but kept it as a whole, with major nodes at Geraldton, Northern, Merredin, Katanning and Esperance, which I guess conveniently fits where we do have quite good infrastructure through DAFWA, and where we have worked with some of the partners through CSIRO, UWA, Curtin University and Murdoch University. Now it's pretty clear that the role of government agencies in grains industry D&E is changing pretty rapidly. But at the moment, they remain an important service provider and play a support role for grower groups, consultants, private sector, D&E providers. So it will be really important for partners to maintain really good relationships and a network of expertise from which the broader agribusiness can grow. And of course, that includes the grower groups, Grower Group Alliance, AAAC, WANTFA, NRM, and of course all the regional consultants. We've got these, within the implementation, we've got these strategies that I guess they're really priority action areas, and there's 6 of them, and it's looking at building on, so this is, I guess, where the implementation committee at the moment is trying to focus their efforts in implementing the strategy, and that's looking at building on national collaboration, effective relationships between public and private sector RD&E, national centres of research capability in the infrastructure, the regional D&E networks, this is what I've really already talked about, national capability planning for human capital, and of course stakeholder planning cycles and priority settings. Now, because I've just got a couple of minutes, I guess the first, the second and the last areas that we've particularly looked at, the implementation committee's really only got going over the last sort of 9 or 10 months. So we've been trying to identify and prioritise issues for RD&E investment, have a look at where there's national programs or national collaboration that's not working particularly well, where we can improve and strengthen that, and particularly how we can identify and implement the major support and link roles within the national framework. More effective relationship models for the public and private sector. We have developed some principles around when and how you would develop into an arrangement with some of the multinational companies. So it's looking at that kind of relationship in research. And then this year we're focusing more on delivery of extensions to get those really good public-private partnerships going well. Stakeholder planning cycles and priority setting were considered really important by the committee. Broad input and planning and priority setting is critical, and we really need to have a collaborative process for annually reviewing performance and priorities in grains industry and you know, how we are setting those priorities for the future. So I guess last May, one of the first things that the committee did was look at how we could plan better on an annual basis for making decisions on investment in research, development and extension from an agency point of view, and also from other CSIRO and universities. And this was at a time when the regional crop solution groups were just in the pipeline, so we were looking at how we would get the information from the grass levels up through to making decisions on where local research, local activities, regional R&D&E and then national research priorities would be set into place and invested. So I guess now, February is probably the first time we'll get a chance to start rolling into this and see how it works and how we get the information flow, because of course it's really important to get that two-way information flow, not only from the grassroots priorities coming up, but also understanding how and when those investments are being made. So that's probably where I'd like to finish off, because it kind of leads into where we're going with regional crop solution groups. What I would like to say is we did also produce a bit of a flyer to talk about the implementation committee, what they're trying to do, and all the information, how you can contact anyone if you want to contact them to have any discussion about, you know, what you're doing, how you can be involved. John Harvey and Mark Sweetingham are co-chairs at the moment, and there's representation from all the PISC agencies, as well as CSIRO. We've now got, and obviously Grain Producers Australia from the Western, Southern and Northern region, but we've also got representation now from the National Agribusiness Reference Group and from Grain Traders Australia. So I think that's about me finished.
What's the formal mechanism for regularly updating where the skills and expertise are in the system there? Is it by knowing that list and giving them a phone call,
yeah,
saying that somebody's doing something good, present something a bit more structured?
The original capability audit, which was fairly extensive, and I think it was done in 2008, I'm not sure, but it actually did look at human capability as well as resources and investment in terms of dollars. It was very extensive, and we're not sure we'll go to the same level of detail if you're talking about that kind of thing. So we could work out where there was deficiencies in terms of particular types of training and that, or where we were, you know, lacking agronomists and that. So that's outlined in the book. If you're talking about updating where your interest is in terms of your R&D priorities, we're hoping to do it on an annual basis. So I've just heard from Curtin University and University of Melbourne and ANU, and so we're trying to get that information update and put it online so that it will be easier for people to provide an ongoing update, so that it's not the snapshot you see in here in a moment in time. It's changed quite a lot since that was put together.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm getting at is, I mean, that was 2009, and that's as the work looked then. So the formal mechanism is going to be through people volunteering information to a website.
Obviously the implementation committee has got membership from all the PISC agencies, so they'll be responsible for themselves. but it will come down to the person in that state who's responsible for particular universities.
So I think you can volunteer information at any time through this to any member of the committee, or if we haven't heard from an institution for a while, we will actively, the onus is on us to actively check with a Curtin or a Newton Murdoch or whoever that might be, to check that we've still got things reasonably up to date. I mean, I guess the thing that there may have been, when people first started hearing about a national Grains RD&E strategy, and when the book first came out, got to realise that this is actually a roadmap of how we will work together as GRDC, the state agencies, CSIRO and universities, and how we will jointly strategically plan together and consult with industry to make sure we've got the priorities right. This isn't a document that talks about what the current priorities are or what the actual specific projects ought to be. It was never intended to be that. It's a better process by which all these organisations, and as you all know, we spend a lot of money in this country doing strategic plans. GRDC are required to do a 5-year plan under their charter. DAFWA is, CSIRO is. But when you actually sit down and look at what's written in those documents, and there will be a lot more sharing of the thinking and thought process that goes into those documents on the way through. That will be one of the achievements of this document, to make sure that people are on the same wavelength. Because I know for one thing, and any growers in the room will tell you that they get pretty sick and tired of being asked what their priorities are by 10 different groups. I've been on seeking information on DAFWA. From DAFWA, we run a process to try and find out grower priorities in a particular region, only to turn up and find out, well, Mark, what are you asking us for? GRDC was here 2 weeks ago, asked us the same questions. So we want to avoid that sort of thing. We want to work together and plan together and streamline it so that we get the quickest and most consolidated information possible. So that's really what the strategy is about.